Are you diabetic, hypertensive with fatty liver? You've been very compliant with your medications, following all the strategies and food guides, and of course, the other supplements that were usually given, but still, you can see that there are no changes. Year after year, you notice that all of your blood works are actually worsening or in need of additional medications. Then, if that is your case, try to check this top five best healthy practices that I myself really noticed to work in my patients in more than 4 years of low carb nutrition practice here in the Philippines and, of course, online abroad. So, my name is Dr. Josephine Grace Chua Rohatan, also known as Diet Doctora here in the Philippines. And today I will talk to you about that top five best healthy practices that you can apply and possibly be the best adjunct, be the best supplement in your current lifestyle, in your current search for that best strategy on how to improve your health. So, number one, we will go with this one: eat real foods. So, what do I mean when I say eat real foods? You actually try to avoid everything that is processed, everything that is packed, everything with food labels, because you know why? Real food actually don't need labels, don't need food labels. They even don't need nutritional facts on them, because real foods are the ones you get from the fresh market. So you have fresh meat, you can have chicken, beef, pork, you can even have seafoods, you have crabs, you can have shrimps. So all of those real foods you can consume. If ever you are not fond of eating all meat, all proteins, so from time to time, if you feel satiated or it feels like too much proteins or too much fats for you, then you can add in your vegetables. So choose low carb vegetables. You can have cucumber, you can have lettuce, green leafy vegetables if you are not sensitive to oxalates. And of course, try to consume your proteins and fats first, which we will discuss in a short while. I know there are so many food supplements that are given. There are many kind of milk products or even other meal replacement products that is recommended in certain items, in certain conditions that are said to be in need of these supplements, like diabetes. There are many medications now and supplements and milk products. Right now, there are already a lot of supplements and milk products that are. Hmm, Right now, there are already a lot of available products in the market selling as food supplement for diabetes, for hypertension, for fatty liver, and they cost a lot. But the thing is, if you eat real foods, you actually don't need any of those, because majority, if not all, of the vitamins and minerals that we need, we can get from real foods, especially animal meat products. So, how about grains and fruits? Eating grains and fruits signal your body that you are in a harvest season. So when you are in a harvest season, you're actually bound to pile up all the fats in your body and not burn them. However, if you stay away, especially at least 3/4 times of the year, from carbohydrates, from glucose, fructose, and starch, including potato, including rice, including corn and wheat products, you will give your body a chance to burn all of those extra fats that you've piled up over the years, have because harvest season will make your body store fats and not use them, and providing and consuming less carbohydrates will give your body the signal that it's now time to burn those fats. Now, if you are still not ready to fast or do some extended fasting or intermittent fasting, at least try to eat foods that are low in carbohydrates. So, what are these real foods? Again, these are meat products. So, you can have beef, you can have chicken, you can have turkey, you can have lamb, you can have all of the animal meat products that you want. provided that you consume them without inflammatory foods, most commonly sugary foods and foods that are high in starch, high in glucose. Even if they say that it's high in fiber, but if it's high in starch and glucose, then that is still high carb. And eventually, it can still spike up your blood sugar. It can still spike your insulin level in the body, and insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, fatty liver, inflammation, hypertension, tumors, and the list goes on can just happen. So, first best practice is to just eat real food. Usually, when I go to the market, I only go to the fresh produce aisle where there are meat, frozen meat sometimes, if ever frozen meat sometimes, but mostly it's all fresh meat and eggs, of course. So, eggs are our staple. So, if you are still starting up, you can replace your rice, you can replace your you can replace your rice, you can replace your potato, or you can also replace your favorite bread with just eggs instead. So that's the number one best practice that you can do. Just eat real food. Oatmeal is not a real food because it's already processed. And again, it's still carbohydrate that signals harvest season in our body. That's why we need to avoid it, especially if you've been on high carb diet for so long. So number two, we can do circadian fasting. So what is circadian fasting? Circadian fasting is a day-to-day fasting that we do. It's just that we take note of our circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is our wake and sleep cycle in our bodies. So research shows that if you are not attuned with your circadian rhythm, you are bound to have metabolic problems as well. So it's not just about losing sleep, but eventually your body will develop a stress response where it can lead into a lot of glucose production, even if you are not taking anything with glucose. And at the same time, it can lead into inflammation. So metabolism will go awry. Signs of diabetes, or you can have signs of sugar intolerance that can reflect as diabetes. Eventually there can also be hypertension and many other signs of inflammation. So how to do circadian fasting? So basic, when you do circadian fasting, you just take notice of the sun. When the sun is up, you can eat. When the sun is down, stop eating altogether. And if ever your work is irregular, say for example you work on a graveyard shift, so you can do somewhat mimic circadian fasting, even if it's not real circadian rhythm, by making sure that your last meal intake would be 4 to 6 hours before your intended bedtime. And how about water intake? Try to minimize your water intake about 2 hours before your bedtime. And of course, before you go to sleep, even if you don't feel like peeing, you just go to the toilet and pee so that you'll have a restful, undisturbed, high quality, high and melatonin rich sleep. And of course, for some help, if you have problem doing it altogether, it's also best to just take melatonin if you cannot do the necessary sleep hygiene protocol, wherein you avoid artificial lights about 4 to 6 hours also before your bedtime. So with our lifestyle nowadays, just facing gadgets, it's also important to just make sure that we can still have that melatonin rich sleep. So you can just have 5 to 10 milligrams of melatonin, any melatonin over the counter, as long as it's so sure that it's a legit real melatonin product. So you can have 5 to 10 milligrams as long as you do not have any contraindication for taking it. So that's one thing that you can do. Circadian fasting as minimum as 12 hours in a day. So say for example, if your last meal on dinner is around 6 o'clock in the evening, so by 6 o'clock in the morning, you can already have breakfast. But of course, after a while, especially if you are eating low carb, nutrient dense foods during your eating window, it's just a matter of time that you will notice that you no longer have that appetite, the previous kind of appetite that you have, wherein every 1 to 2 hours you are hungry. When you do low carb nutrition, you eat real foods without all of those sugar spike, you will notice that you will notice that eating at least just 1 to 2 times a day is already enough. So, if you can extend your eating window to, say, for example, just if you if you can extend your fasting window to, say, for example, 14 to 16 hours, especially if you still have some belly fats that you can lose, then that is even much better. So eat when you are most active and when you feel that you are nutritionally in need of food, not just because you are bored or you are just in the company of people that you usually eat with. So you can have your options as long as you finish your mealtime in less than 12 hours in a day, or even just as little as 4 to 6 hours in a day. So, say for example, if you will have your breakfast around 10 in the morning, you can finish eating around 6 in the evening. So that's already 8 hours of window period for eating. And when it comes to intermittent fasting, especially circadian fasting, that is already a 16-8 protocol. That means you are fasting for 16 hours and you are going to eat for 8 hours. So you can have two light meals there or two regular meals there, and make sure that you also apply the other tips here. So you choose real foods and then you eat them on your eating window during your circadian fasting protocol. So, circadian fasting is just like intermittent fasting, but this one is making sure that when you go to sleep, your stomach is somewhat empty, that your last heavy meal, your last proper meal would be around 4 to 6 hours before your intended bedtime, to make sure that your body can get the real rest that it needs. Because if you will sleep on a full stomach, even if you will have food coma, even if you will sleep right away, but your body will not get the rest that it needs, because your body will be very busy digesting the foods that you just ate. Whereas if you will sleep on an empty stomach, your body can have the healing that it needs on a day-to-day basis, and so you will feel refreshed and get ready for another day, and not piling up all of those oxidants that keeps on piling up on our body on a day-to-day basis that we need to cleanse. And that cleansing only happens when you are resting the right way, and resting the right way would be resting on an empty, or at least not on a full stomach. Okay, so that is our tip number two. So our tip number three would be hit your daily target proteins. We've been brainwashed that eating proteins, especially from animal meat, is bad when it comes to our nutrition, when it comes to our health. They say that it's gonna lead us into cancer formation or gonna damage our kidneys, but these are not true. Eating healthy proteins, especially without too much carbohydrates, because all of those research saying that high protein intake is bad, they did not take into account also the amount of inflammatory foods, especially the amount of carbohydrates that those people are eating. Because you know why? Eating high carb, eating more than 200 grams of carbohydrates in a day, that is just equivalent to about 50 teaspoons of white sugar in a day, is now the norm. And we have been brainwashed that that is better than eating real food, eating meat, eating fish, eating seafood, eating real healthy proteins that our hunter and gatherer ancestors are actually used to for millions of years. So when it comes to evolutionary perspective of nutrition, we are hunters, and when we say hunters, we are bound to eat animal proteins, and we only started eating grains in the form of rice, bread, wheat products, and corn, or any other grains. Oatmeal and many others are just byproducts of agricultural revolution, which occurred in just less than 1% of our existence as humans, based on evolutionary history of humans here on earth. So, target proteins. How much is your daily target proteins? When it comes to low carb, it is actually higher than the standard recommendation, because right now we will get some of our calorie needs from proteins, because we will no longer get it from glucose, from carbs, because we don't want to be dependent on glucose alone as a source of energy. So a minimum of about half kilogram of lean meat proteins, coming from chicken, coming from beef, pork, lamb, turkey, and other seafoods like prawns or shrimp and crabs. All of these can be combined. So about 50 to 60 kilogram person would need at least half kilo of lean proteins in a day. So if you are about 70 to 80 kilograms, so you might need about three-fourth to up to a kilogram of lean proteins in a day, especially if you are exercising. And that is the best adjunct when it comes to this way of life, because those proteins that you will take, aside from using them for energy, you can also make sure that you can use them into muscle bulking, into increasing weight, but the healthy kind of weight. And that kind of weight is coming from your proteins, and it will become protein in your body in the form of muscles. Having muscles and doing exercises will make you more resistant to stress, and of course, resistance to stress also equates to good health and less chances of getting sick real soon. So be healthy for the longest time as possible. And about the fourth of our best practice tip for this year, as your diet doctor, I recommend that you also control your fat intake. So control in two ways. Control when it comes to the type of fats that you will eat. So the first one, you make sure that you only consume fats that are natural. So avoid seed oils, avoid fats that are manufactured in factories. So vegetable oil, mostly canola oil, sunflower oil, any other seed oils that are not naturally present, that they have to undergo heat processing, a lot of chemical processing, that just to extract all of those fats. So what are the healthy fats that you can choose? You can have butter instead of margarine. Don't buy margarine, buy butter instead. You can have tallow, or the beef fat, lard, or the pork fats. You can have coconut oil, which is very abundant in tropical countries like Philippines. And of course, if you choose palm oil, you make sure that it's from the pulp, from the fruit, and not from the seed. There's two kinds. So to be safe, try to use coconut oil instead. And of course, extra virgin coconut oil, that is best used when it is raw, it is fresh on your salads. It's not that you cannot use it for cooking, but it is best used when taken raw. So other kinds of good fats would be avocado, olives are also good fats. So all of those. And when it comes to control, you can also control in amount, because as much as we are not afraid of fats in low carb nutrition, we should also not take in so much, especially if you are not exercising, especially if you are not using those, and most especially if you still have a lot of fats in your body that you can still use. Because what will happen if you consume a lot of fats and you are not using it, then those fats can pile up in your body. It's not that you will have heart attack right there and then, but if ever you will undergo a certain kind of stress that are inevitable, like say for example a loss of a loved one, or say for example you've got an infection, or you got into an accident, that your body is going to undergo a certain stress or inflammation, then the presence of high fats in your body together with that inflammation may not be the best thing to be there all together, and that can be dangerous. That's why, as much as we are not afraid of fats, we should also not overconsume it for general health purposes. So, generally, our fat intake on an average should just be no more than 90 grams per day. So, 90 grams, that is equivalent to about 6 tablespoons of coconut oil or olive oil in a day, or 6 tablespoon worth, or half a tube of, or half a serving, or half a package of your butter. And of course, you can also consider the fats that you consume from your meat, from your pork, from your chicken, from your beef, and all together. So the fats can be increased in certain conditions that are indicated to really increase fats, because they are not able to accommodate a lot of proteins. So, on average, on a normal functioning kidney, you can have half a kilo to up to a kilogram of lean meat. However, for those with chronic kidney diseases, stage 4, stage 5, depending on your weight and height right now, you might be consuming just only about one-fourth a kilo of proteins in a day, or one-fourth kilo of raw meat in a day, and that is equivalent to about 50 to 60 grams of proteins. But on average, if you are still normal, your usual target proteins would be about 100 to even up to 150 grams of protein, and that is equivalent to half kilo to three-fourth kilo of raw weight meat. Okay, because it's not one is to one, whereas fats mostly it's almost one is to one, it's nearing one is to one. So make sure that you don't consume more than 100 to 200 raw weight of fats on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so our fifth tip is, if ever you cannot say no to carbohydrates, if it's high carb, or even if it is low carb carbohydrates, like the coconut bread, homemade almond bread, and of course your vegetables, your cucumber and lettuce, and all other low carb vegetables, if you cannot avoid them, at least consume your carbs on the last part. So that you make sure that you will finish your target proteins and fats first, because the problem when you consume your carbs first, you might be feeling full early without getting your target vitamins, minerals, and nutrients for the day. So there are many low carbers who are already losing too much weight, especially muscle weight, because they are not hitting their target proteins, and we have a minimum target protein requirement of at least zero point 0.8 gram of protein in a day for maintenance of our body functions. And if you cannot eat that, then your body will get it from your internal, or from your first, of course, from your stored proteins in your muscles. And if it's already depleted, then it can go and target your internal organs, to which we do not want to happen. So you make sure that you consume your proteins first and your targeted fat intake. And of course, if you must eat carbs, eat them on the last part. So that is our 5 healthy low carb practices for today. And I hope you learned something today. And I would like to say hi to Lynn E, who requested to make more contents in English so that it can reach those who are not able to understand our Filipino discussion. So I think I've already exhausted much of the discussion in Filipino. So this time we will cater those. So now we will cater those who are able to understand English so that we can have a wider reach. So thank you so much, guys, for it. So thank you so much, everyone, for being in our channel. And if you wish to, and if ever, if you like this content, kindly let us know in the comment section and what topics you want discussed so that we can include them in our list of topics for you. So thank you very much. This is again your diet doctora, Dr. Josephine Grace Rohatan. And always remember to stick to the safe list of JGC Rojo food list. You can just search that, and it's downloadable also in our www.jgrtanmd.com. And right now, our structured learning program is on sale and available in lcfmasterclass.com. Currently, it's still in Filipino version, but soon we will launch an international LCF Masterclass in English. So kindly make sure that you wait for that, and we can all be healthy, and we can share this to our loved ones and families so that all of us will be at our best. So this is our topic for today. Doctor recommended top 5 best healthy practices for this year and ever. Stay low carb, guys. Stay safe. Bye bye. Till our next video.